Now, moving on to the conflict in Ukraine, where Russian President Vladimir Putin is accusing Ukrainians of terrorist methods. He's introduced martial law in Ukrainian regions Russia claims to have annexed. What does this mean for Ukrainians living in those regions, Greg?
Well, Rita, I think this is a very sinister and disturbing development. There are reports that Russia is evacuating tens of thousands of Ukrainians out of Kherson into Russia. Now, it seems very likely that a lot of those people being evacuated do not want to be evacuated to Russia. If anywhere, they'd like to be evacuated to Ukraine, to elsewhere in Ukraine. And these people are effectively going to be hostages. Russia has taken other Ukrainians into Russia as well, including children. The Russian conduct in these occupied areas is terrible. There's indiscriminate killing. It's clear that rape has been used as a weapon of war. And now we're seeing, of course, a pattern of indiscriminate shelling across Ukraine of civilian missile attacks and drone attacks and shelling of civilian populations. So there's a series of war crimes being committed by Russia. I think the martial law simply makes it even more naked, the brutal nature of Russian rule in these areas which it claims to have annexed, but which the civilian population has never had any meaningful say in. There is a small number of people, I'm sure, who do support Russian rule in those areas, but I think this is very, very sinister for the civilian populations involved.
Now, the fallout has continued today, Greg, over Labor's decision to drop Australia's recognition of West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We've had the coalition, the Teals, certainly international allies, and even some Labor caucus members have questioned the government's decision. Up until now, you could say that Penny Wong was doing particularly well in foreign policy. She wasn't getting much criticism at all, but this decision is clumsy, to say the least. I'd use some other adjectives as well. How much damage has this done to our relationship with Israel?
So the element of clumsiness is quite real. That's separate from the substance of the decision. Very strange to see a decision executed in this clumsy fashion by the Albanese government. Penny Wong has been on top of her brief thoroughly. The department, I don't think the Department of Foreign Affairs ever liked the former Morrison government's decision. Although, mind you, Rita, this is a very Australian thing. So the Morrison government decided to recognise West Jerusalem as the Israeli capital, but then not physically to move our embassy there. If they'd moved the embassy there physically, Labor probably would not have reversed it, because it would have meant, breaching commercial leases on property and uprooting diplomats and all the rest of it. So all we did was a symbol of symbolism. And the ridiculous lines on the Department of Foreign Affairs website under the Morrison government said that one day, when there was a comprehensive peace agreement, we would move our embassy to West Jerusalem. But of course, one day, if there's a comprehensive peace agreement, even East Jerusalem might be part of Israel. So, I mean, neither side of politics has handled this very well. I thought the Morrison government was very clumsy the way it did the initial decision. We do recognise West Jerusalem as sovereign Israeli territory. We send out, so our ambassador won't go to East Jerusalem for a meeting with the Israelis because we don't recognise Israeli sovereignty on East Jerusalem. But they go to West Jerusalem all the time. They go to the Knesset, they meet politicians there. Our foreign minister stays in the King David Hotel in West Jerusalem. We already recognise Israeli sovereignty of West Jerusalem. We've just made a ridiculous symbolic decision to satisfy the left wing of the Labor Party. But really the whole thing is a sort of a shabby side of Australian politics. It doesn't reflect on anyone very well. I don't think it's going to have a very long run effect on anything, because we remain a very good friend of Israel's. But it's Australian politics at its, in some respects, at its most amateurish, I think.
Greg Sheridan, thank you so much for joining me tonight.